Okay, today, weather permitting, because it looks like it might rain any minute, I'm going to be replacing the TRQ brand upstream sensor, which is located right there, with a Denso brand. Here's the new one, the new Denso brand. This is the old one, the TRQ. I've put two, maybe three different front sensors in from TRQ, and one of them I think worked for like a day or two and then started not working. This current one has not worked right from the beginning, unless I'm wrong. If it's working right, then that means I've got an intake leak or something, but I can't find an intake leak. So my next step is to put a known good brand sensor. This is what Nissan originally used in this car. So I'm going to put the original Nissan preferred, recommended, whatever brand of O2 sensor back in. And then I'm going to run the test again to see how the O2 numbers compare, or the voltages on the sensor, how they compare to the TRQ numbers that I measured yesterday, and see if we get the same type of stuff. More importantly, I want to see if I can resolve the P2A00 error so I can get this car inspected. It may be that this sensor fixes the P2A00 error, but I go back to the P420 error because I still have a TRQ backflow sensor or backstream sensor, and I'll have to jack the car up to replace it. But I don't have the new one of those in. I do have a Denso brand of one of those on order, expected in the next week or so. But I'm going to do this first and see what happens, and I'll be back. So what I did was I took the wire, disconnected the connector up here, and then I gave it a twist. Zoom out a little bit. Gave it a twist, and that allows this to come off of this, so that this hot thing, which is just hot water, shouldn't be as hot as exhaust, isn't touching the wires. I can't put the heat shield on this because this unit is an aftermarket unit, the catalytic converter exhaust manifold. So maybe I can come up with something that I can attach here to keep this off of here. But I'm not going to bother with that until I get this thing to where it's going to be, you know, passing emissions. So anyway, wire's not touching anything like that, so at least I feel okay about that. Let the testing begin. Okay. So car has been started. Just started. Temperature is water temperature 77 degrees up to 79. Bank number 1, sensor 2. That's our new sensors at 0.28. I'm sorry, that's the TRQ. The new sensors at 0.29. That's the upstream. Short term is at 3.1% cold. Engine is still cold. It's running at about 1200 RPM. Water temperature is rising pretty quick. It's already up to 88 degrees. The short-term numbers are consistent with the old sensor. So far, so good. So this is the one we're going to be watching to see what happens as it warms up. 0.285. I think that's consistent with the old one at this temperature point. Okay. Temperature's rising. Like I said, the engine was just started just moments ago. All right, I will continue to watch this, and I'll pause the video and be back. Okay, engine temperature's up to 138 degrees. Bank sensor 2, that's the backstream, is still at 0.29 unchanged. Bank sensor 1 is our new sensor, the new Denso. It's still at a 0.285, which I think is consistent with the TRQ sensor at this point. Short-term fuel trims 3.1, that I think is an acceptable value. If it stays low like that, we're going to be okay. All right, I'll be back after a little while. All right, the engine temperature has just now reached 160. The back stream sensor is up to 0.1 or 0.31 volts, which I think is pretty consistent with the previous test. Bank 1, sensor 1, which is the one, the Denso, the new sensor, is at 0.29 still. And I think that is consistent with the TRQ sensor. But it seems like the short-term trim is still lower than the previous test. I'll have to review the video. I think we were like bouncing around at 7% at this point, and it's still only 3 to 4%, maybe 4.5%. So that number seems to be different, but the voltage seems to be about the same. Let me let it warm up some more and I'll be back. All right, So the engine temperature is at 178, and it's been there for a while without changing. So I think we're at the same point we were in the first set of tests, where the thermostat has to open up before it goes up any higher. The voltage on the back sensor has dropped to 0.3 and is stable. Voltage on the new sensor is 0.29, stable. It hasn't gone up or down. It's pretty much staying the same. I don't know if that's right or not. The short-term fuel trims, though, are staying below 5% so far. And so I think if it stays below 5%, we're okay, but it's probably going to go up at this rate because we were down at 1 or 2% when we first started this. But yeah, we're at 4.7 consistent at the moment. So let me see how long it's going to take, but eventually I expect the temperature to go up and then something's going to change with these numbers. Okay, so the engine temperature has gone above 180 finally. And I think at this point in the last test, I started revving the engine to see what the numbers would do. Yeah, so we're getting very similar responses on the new sensor as we did the old sensor. I saw it jump up to 0.8 there, and I questioned whether that made sense or not. So it can go higher, like up to 0.8. Let's see what that does. 0.8, where's it at? So 0.3 that time didn't ramp up. And it didn't go low either. But if you look at the range, it's gone down as low as 0.135 and as high as 0.81. So, okay, the sensor 2 is now starting to go up in voltage, and that's consistent with yesterday. The short term, it's gone above 5% now, as you can see. And I think that that is not good, but it may not necessarily be enough to cause the error. So at this point, I think I'm ready to drive it like I did yesterday, drive it around the block a few times and see what the numbers ramp up to. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I just got through driving at about 2 miles, a little bit less than 2 miles. And engine temperature is not as high as it was yesterday, but it may be because it's not as warm outside. O2 bank 2 sensor, downstream sensor, has a higher voltage, 0.7, like we saw yesterday after driving it. Bank 1, sensor 1, the new sensor, is still at 0.28. Our short-term fuel trim is now bouncing around between, like, looks like 4% and 8%, something like that. I don't know if that's normal or not. All I can say is it does seem different. I think this number's less. I think we were around 13% yesterday with the old sensor. So now what I'm going to want to do is check to see if we have any error codes. So I'm going to go to read the error codes. Okay, no codes, no pending codes, so that's looking good, just like yesterday. Let's go to smog check, run the scan. Let's see what we're lacking to get this thing inspected. All right, green checks all the way down to right there. So we're still needing the catalyst to pass. The evap system and the oxygen sensor still have not had enough time to be in the ready position. So I think at this point I can't conclude that the new sensor is bad. It is acting differently. Let me go to live data again, see what we got. So the short term, it's quite a bit lower, I believe. I believe this number is quite a bit lower than yesterday. I got to review the video. I would have swore it was like 13% yesterday. That should be fine. As long as it stays below 10%, I think it will clear and be ready to be inspected. Now, I still need to replace the downstream sensor. That may affect things. You know, that may be what's keeping this number up high. So when I get the Denso sensor in, we'll do this test again, I guess, and see what we get. But I'm thinking this might just be good enough to not create any new errors and pass emissions and all the things that need to be ready to pass emissions happen. So the engine temperature is above 190 now. Let's look at the voltages. So back sensor still at 0.7. That's consistent with yesterday. This, I think, is different. I think yesterday this number was like 0.3 or 0.4, maybe even 0.5. It was up higher after we drove it for a couple miles. Definitely think the short-term fuel trims are better. All right, well, that's it for this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive this to pick up some meds at Walmart as a test drive and see if it generates any error codes. That should be a long enough drive. Before, when I would drive to Walmart and back, I would get the P2800 when I checked it when I got back home. So let me do that test and I'll be back. I just finished my round trip to Walmart and back, and the numbers are, short term. Why is it negative? That's weird. Negative 18. That can't be good. Oh, now it's at 0. What the hell? What was that all about? Oh man, I don't know. Bank 2, I'm sorry, sensor 2 on bank 1, the downstream, it's up at 0.8. That, maybe I'm wondering if that's even correct. This is the Denso sensor. It's at 0.265, and as you can see, as I was driving, there's little bumps in it. That has to be correct. I mean, we have to assume the Denso is correct. So that is different than the other sensor. But what is going on? Look at it. It was negative and now it's positive. And what in the hell is going on here? I don't know. I mean, this voltage here is more consistent than this one. So maybe the the sensor 2, the downstream sensor, maybe that is causing this wild fluctuations in the short term. Look at the long term. Long term is now going up. So yeah, that's not going to be good. That's not going to pass inspection, I don't think. All right, well let's find out. Let's go to check the status. Let's do a smog check. Scan. Yep, see, it's got a code. So it will not pass the way it currently is. My only hope is if the sensor number 2, the backstream sensor, is the problem, and when I put the Denso sensor in, it fixes the problem. If not, then I don't know. This is going to be a P2800, isn't it? Let me check. It's either a P2800 or a P420. It is a P420. Okay, that tells me that the front or the first or the upstream, whatever you want to call it, sensor is working, and that this backstream sensor is giving this error. That's what that's telling me, because before, when I thought it was the backstream, I would get this, and when I replaced it, the front stream caused the P2800. All right, so tell you what we're going to do. We're going to wait until the other sensor comes in. It'll probably be in next week. And I'll install it on next weekend, and I will do this test again, and I'm hoping that will fix the problem. Man, what a pain this has become. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'll see you next week.